Have you ever looked at an Elden Ring boss and thought, this is way too weak? Well, fear not, because FromSoft has generously included 165 bosses for you to suffer from. Now, the average socially responsible human being might say, I am going to beat this with a katana. But I, however, am wanted in 18 states and declared clinically insane. So we're only allowed to use dragon spells, which, if you didn't know, is the FromSoft equivalent of tossing a coin in fear and hunger. Despite popular belief, Dragon Incantations were actually balanced correctly, because as you trade the steady decline of your mental state, what you get in return is a But when my mental health is at its lowest, the best stress relief that I can turn to is Worldshards. From the creators of World of Tanks, War Thunder, and Battlefield Bad Company 2 comes a game where you get your own island to develop, while you get resources, craft weapons, build your dream house, establish farms and factories, and of course, fight enemies and uncover mysteries of the land. And as if that wasn't good enough, the world is cat-coded, which is perfect for varying reasons depending on the player. The world of Merlandia presents the gameplay loop of adventuring for new experiences and better gear, while building with the resources that you've gathered, walking around the city full of NPCs to trade, and crafting new and better equipment to use for another round of exploration. Worldshards' first batch of early access keys will be on sale starting February 15th, alongside exclusive Founders Islands that feature a unique design and increased capacity. So make sure to check the link below so you can catch a ride to Merlandia in Worldshards' first early access event. The first step to this challenge is to actually get a viable build. Dragon Incantations are slow as fuck, and Elden Ring is a game where you get the shit beat out of you so fast you wonder if you even bought the right game. So, if you want to deal damage, you better make it count. That's right, we're here to achieve peak performance. Now, granted, there might be a lot to get, but don't worry. All of those shouldn't take so long. Oh my fucking god, that's 2 hours of my life. To prevent your retention taking a nosedive, I'm going to skip all of that. I'll go over the important parts though, like primarily the fact that you cannot get a dragon incantation without killing a dragon. But if you watched any of the rare court meetings I was forced to attend, you would find that I am very good at mental gymnastics. So get this, the goal of this run is to kill all of the bosses with only dragon incantations. I see some of you get it now. That's right, Elder Dragon Grail is a non-boss dragon that drops dragon hearts. So technically speaking, this is the most legal way to get a dragon heart. I spent the runes on buying some essentials and leveling up to 14 strength, 14 dexterity, 33 faith, and 14 arcane. This is meant to accommodate the jellyfish shield, howl of Shabriri, and the arcane needed for the dragon spells. And with the dragon hearts, I started with just dragonfire and rotten breath. Next, I had to run all the way through the entire game area to get everything else that I needed. Once that's done, I headed back to the stranded graveyard to get the Dragon Communion seal, the only correct seal for this run. That's pretty much it in terms of resource gathering. And to complete the pre-boss build, I headed up to the Volcano Manor to get a +5 Somber Smithing Stone.
Honestly, my opinion on ASMR videos, I find them creepy.
I've been listening to Yandere ASMR recently. No? Nothing? Okay.
No comment. No comment.
Thank God. You may have noticed that this video isn't region locked, and that's because it already took 20 whole ass hours for me to beat it normally. There is no way I am doing it region locked. But you know what? If this video gets 1,987 likes, I will do the next all bosses challenge run region locked. On God. With all that yapping out the way, here's the full build before killing a single boss. This is roughly indicative of how strong you can get at this stage of the game. But how strong actually is that?
Man, shut your bitch ass. The fuck?
Let's just say we're making it out of Limgrave with this one. That's one boss out of 165. I just can't wait to spend my life on this. In case you didn't notice, I'll be reviewing my power level for every point of progression in the game. Right now, we're in the pre-Great Rune stage, meaning I now have access to a lot of the bosses in the game. And with 2 of my talisman slots unlocked, I sought to fill it, heading straight to the Limgrave tunnels to absolutely deck the Stone Digger Troll. This guy drops the Roar Medallion, which was updated to be able to buff Dragon Roar spells. I'll be using this in tandem with whatever elemental talisman I need for the moment. The next boss in line is the Cleanrot Knight duo in Caelid, because they drop the Golden Scarab, which you can quickly equip at the end of fights to get a 20% rune bonus. Easy for me as I am simply that skilled. This stacks with the Golden Foulfoot, which you can craft by buying the thing that you get from patches. I managed to spare him here, which at this point is more impressive than killing him. Back to the damage stacking, I fought the Putrid Avatar in West Caelid to get the Fire Shrouding crack tier. With all of these buffs, I fought the other Smelly Tree in the east. In a place like this, the Shrouding tier is really just there to offset the increased fire resistance from the rain, which is why you see a pretty medium amount of damage. The Scarab and the Feet together give me a whopping of 140 140,000 runes. And because my skill pretty much stopped scaling faith at 30, it's all going to arcane. After this, I set out to clear a lot of Dragon Barrow, as the bosses there drop a lot of runes. I started with the Beastman duo, which took more than 2 brain cells than usual, because the melee guy has too much health to get one shot and is too fast to ignore. And after that, I went back to Limgrave to kill the Guardian Golem for the Blue Dancer charm. See, fire as a damage type has one of the highest damage ceilings in the game, but to balance that, it also has one of the stupidest resistances. Like, even the moisture in the air is enough to make a boss resistant to fire, which is why I need a secondary weapon, a surprise tool you might say, in the form of physical damage. There are 3 major physical damage Dragon Incantations. In the early game, I'll be using the Rot Breath, which you probably think is unfair on the fact that it can kill a boss without you doing anything. But consider the following. How can I rot a boss that's already dead? Although that doesn't seem to be the case right now, as Grail is not giving me any opportunities to blow. I find it quite ironic that dragons were actually quite difficult in this challenge, but right now, it might just be foreshadowing. Next, I wanted to get my seal upgraded to +9. The only way to do this is to fight the Gazkan Noble in Volcano Manor. There is no way I'm fighting this guy without sleep. This path unlocks the +7, continued by the 8 and the 9 in Dragon Barrow. I then took a small tangent to try the difference between Dragonfire and Magma Breath. Long story short, Magma Breath does less damage, but most of it is done in one instance. While testing this though, I ended up killing Ikis Bokis Ikis, unlocking the Ikis Bokis Ikis Breath. In tandem with this, I went back to Limgrave to get the Ahil's Flame. These two are basically just stronger versions of the elements, but instead they cost more FP, which I didn't actually have, leading me to sweep some mid-tier bosses around the map so I can level up just enough. Starting with Smarag, an Erdtree Avatar, these 2 Pumpkinheads in Kaled, the Magma Worm in Gael Cave, the Knight Cavalry that's famous for being on a bridge, the Blackblade Kindred protecting Gurranq, the Nox Duo that guards the Lusat Staff, this random ass sorcery in the middle of nowhere in Kaled, and the Falling Star Beast that no one likes in the Xelia Crystal Tunnel, which may all give you a false sense of security, only for the Bell-bearing Hunter to come in and give you a fresh cut. Holy fucking smokes. I did not know that they gave him iframes in his entry animation. But guess what I found, little bro? You are not immune to rot. The final couple bosses that I did was Commander O'Neill, the Bellum Knight Cavalry, I fucking hate saying that word, and the Tree Sentinel Duo, leaving me a little over the total FP that I need for one full cast of these dragon spells. With a fully functioning build and 30 bosses down, it's time to review my build as we move on to the next progression point. We now have a +9 dragon seal and upgraded spells to go with it. The real difference between now and then is simply the higher base damage scalings. So now I'm curious, what is Godric's live reaction to this build? Yeah, I feel that sometimes. At this point, the only thing I can really do is actually start ticking off bosses since I'm powerful enough to avoid getting swatted like a fly. But before that, I want to grind something that I should have grinded 3 hours ago. The Golden Foulfoot. I lost about 100,000 runes just because I didn't do this earlier. We will be starting this arc by getting beat the fuck up by a dog. This guy is just way too fast and continues its trend of taking more attempts than the Elden Beast. Damn. Renala comes next, and since the entire arena is doused in gamer girl bathwater, that means she's got fire resistance. So I had to pull out the Rot Breath for this one. This fight took all of about 2 seconds. But now I have the 3rd talisman slot, for which I slotted in the Ritual Sword talisman from this random demi-human queen. This was only the beginning though, as I decided to start clearing the entirety of Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula. If you haven't noticed, this is actually my very first all bosses run, and doing it with the Dragon Incantations is probably not the best way to go, considering I barely gained any personal experience from these boss fights. It takes me about 5 times longer to unlock the dungeon than it does to deal with the boss. Although there were definitely some moments where I learned the hard way, like this goofy demi-human fight. Another enemy of interest were the Deathbirds, because they start off getting completely dogged by Dragon Incantations, until they just decide to lock in and start looks-maxing on your dead body. Of course he lands down there. What?! Oh. Wait, how did I not expect that? Actually, wait, no way! The biggest hurdle in this initial dive is the only Rune Bear boss in the game. Completing the starting regions kind of put into perspective just how many fucking bosses I have to do. But for now, I distracted myself by heading up to Lanedale to finally unlock the Snowfields in my quest to return the strong masculinity that had been lost in the north. Unfortunately, masculinity would instead be forced into me. Welcome to the first boss that beat me so hard I had to change my playstyle and pull out a surprise tool that I was saving for later. Where other games have DPS checks, Elden Ring has vigor checks. This is one of them if you can't tell, but while I did get absolutely mogged, it's funny to say that this is the easiest difficult fight, as I just had to get lucky with the RNG. Bye-bye! Bye-bye! I mogged you, bro. Out-mogged. Get mogged. Bye-bye. It is roughly at this point where I can truly say that the build is complete. And this is what it looks like. From this point on, I'll be mostly increasing my vigor and endurance, because no matter how far you run, Mother's Belt will eventually catch you. In service of that goal, I decided to first clear both the mountaintops and the consecrated Snowfield, since all of those bosses give a lot of runes each, starting with this Blackblade Kindred, whose spawn condition basically meant it was only half of a boss fight. Borealis froze my balls a bunch of times before I realized that the Wyvern Dragons only wear thigh-highs for poise defense, meaning if I give it a clean haircut rating, it does go down quite easily. Oh, I'm about to fucking puke in your mouth, little boy. The Fire Giant is just one of those pretend difficult boss fights. His resistance to fire meant I had to pull out the cut checker. Because I had less vigor than a rural mosquito, the fight ended up being a DPS check. Luckily, the Dragon Claw had enough poise damage to pull off the sleep pod strategy. In the second phase, I relied entirely on the range attack of the Rot Breath, which led to this cool clip of me Sigma blasting the angry Soy Jack. And for the Rot haters in the chat, I made sure the Fire Giant dies to the status effect rather than the attack. I wanted to head to the Snowfield first to take down the easy bosses that give 200,000 runes, so the next boss fight had to be Commander Nile, which I thought would be a lot harder, but the damage apparently just took care of everything. He kept spamming his attack though, which was about as annoying as when I spam femboys with Discord messages before I make them my next target. On the way to the other half of the medallion is this Omen Killer, which I failed to kill twice before I got lucky. The Consecrated Snowfield basically only has easy or repeated bosses, or both, but with a crazy markup on the runes. I began with this Magma Worm that easily gets distracted by Octopus Gat. I mean, I don't blame him, but when you get jumped, you gotta stay focused. Up next is one of the final living trees I get to decimate. Little bro doesn't even get to pull the first attack. The story was not the same, however, for Astel the Stars of Darkness. They gave this guy the highest damaging grab attack in the game, just because they thought it was funny. And while the Dragon Claw would definitely benefit me greatly in this fight, I thought I should pay homage to my first Elden Ring video, where I used Rot Breath against Astel. This ended up being the average Rot Breath fight, where the spell itself did more damage than the Rot. It does remind me of how that video ended up being more like a fight rather than a cheese. Up next was the Knights Cavalry Duo, which unlike other duo fights, are actually two whole boss fights that can occur at the same time. This means two things. I can fight them separately, but my FP resource is unevenly stacked against me. That means that this is the only fight where relying on Scarlet Rot is actually quite important. And that's precisely what I did. I rotted what I could and played the rest of the fight properly, dodging the guys until they went down clean. What came after that, however, was something that does not come down clean. The Deathrite Bird, famous for making recovery frames irrelevant, and also for sucking on imaginary dick. Call that a gag reflex? But just like Dick, this guy is too hard, so I'll save him for later. Here's another Warden Duelist though, and here's another Misbegotten Crusader. Can you tell I'm tired of repeat bosses? Here's another ancient hero Zamor, who isn't actually the boss of the giant conquering hero's grave. It's this troll. A little backwards, but I enjoyed the mix-up. Here's a repeat boss fight of a repeat boss fight. I struggled with this one because I somehow thought it was a good idea to not use sleep pods. I found out the hard way. It's kind of funny how these guys are so vulnerable to cheese strats when you consider it's insufferable as a normal fight. Remember to bring Assassin's Gambit, and you'll be able to sleep these guys really easily. Just like that, the snowy mountains are clear. Well, except for this guy, I guess. But ignoring that, I went ahead and targeted the outliers. Mainly Mogger Palace and the Halleck Tree. I did the tree first, since Loretta is about as easy as the other time you encounter her. But more importantly, it is also to get the Giant Crest Great Shield Talisman. You see, there is a limit to my one-shot tomfoolery, and eventually, I'm going to have to get hit for talking smack. Which is why I gotta start working out and getting tough. While I was at that though, I also went ahead and did the usual preparation for Mog, like getting the red tier and the shackle, as well as getting the better Phlox Talisman, which required me to kill another innocent soul. Just another day, I guess. As much as I'd like to extend this, that's all the preparation you really need, since the entire plan pretty much relies solely on the execution. When you enter this fight, get decently close to Mog so that your Dragon Breath does every tick of damage possible. Shackle him immediately and do a whole cast of Rot. Wait until his countdown goes off and then shackle again to cast again. The preferable situation is that you get both of your casts out before he starts chanting Nihil, because he gets resistance from that countdown. Once that's done, Rot Breath is entirely benched and now you have to play the game with Dragon Claw. I really enjoyed this boss fight actually. It's been so long since I last fought him, considering I never needed to in challenges. So I was completely at the mercy of my gear and the moment by moment. Though, as deadly as Mog was, my cut checker was just as devastating. And soon enough, we would see that the true Mogger was me. By the way, I've cleared most of the endgame content and I haven't even beaten Radon. So I went to correct that small mishap by spelling his demise with the very thing that spelled his demise. I also went ahead and cleared the War Dead Catacombs where we found another Putrid Spirit. The funny thing about Caelid is that it has a lot of bosses that are really deadly in both damage and speed. But here's the catch. I have fooled you into thinking that I forgot, so that I can go way past the recommended power level and ignore all the bullshit that you can get from Caelid. That's right, the real Caelid were the bosses that we sacrificed along the way. But seriously though, it's really really satisfying to tank all of these bosses. My next course of action was to clear the entire underground. There's only one boss in Nokron, though unlocking it took longer than 10 other bosses combined. Then I drew a tangent to Rani's questline so that I can later unlock Adula and Electo. This led me to the quicker Loretta, which only took 2 slaps. Heading over to Nextella, I took another half hour to find all the torches for the Regal Spirit, which took 1 extra slap than the normal spirit, so I guess that's an improvement. I wrought Brothers Dragon Kin Soldier since he takes a moment to wake up. Then I moved on straight to the Valiant Gargoyle Duo, a previously horrific fight until you remember that you have an unfair amount of damage and almost enough defense to tank a full-on assault from Stan Twitter. In the Deep Root Depths, I found that you can ignore avatar attacks by floating with a Dragon Claw. That's crazy. Down here though, you can find Fia's band of rejected vocalists. They've turned to a life of crime, but are not very good at it. You'll see here that they don't quite dodge the dragon spells. Lich Dragon 46 was an unexpectedly easy encounter. This guy is relentless, but turns out his head straight up multiplies the damage you dealt, meaning if you just reliably hit that part, the fight ends like it never happened. This is one of the rare fights that are faster with Dragon Incantations. I braced myself for that one, honestly. All that's left of the underground now are 2 Dragonkin soldiers along the Ainsel River, one on the surface and one in the Lake of Rot. Finally, all that's left is another Astel, which I also took down with the Rot Breath, leading me up to the island of questionable secrecy so I can go and marry the only woman who won't leave me after inviting me to bed. Oh. So anyways, I killed her pet and her tier 3 subscriber. To cope with the loss of my self-esteem, I will take it out on all that are weaker than I. A valuable lesson that I learned from my father. When I say that this part of the run is all journey and 0% destination, I really mean it. The Liurnia bosses are so spread out that you have to traverse the total distance of the Silk Road and then slog through a long-ass dungeon to fight a boss that lasts all of about 2 seconds. My respect for people who do this without dying or getting hit really skyrocketed, because I would fail the challenge and the fact that I would attempt to cause my own death in-game. The outliers in this absolute wreckage include this Onyx Lord, who just so happens to have the poise damage of a nuclear explosion. I shouldn't have gotten comboed here, but I think I was recording at 3 AM. And also I was blindfolded and my little brother was on the keyboard. Altus is where I truly tapped into the primal nature to slap a bald head. I learned here that Dragon Claw is kind of insane for just not caring. It does about 5,000 damage in full cast and gives you hyper armor. But of course, this build only really works if you're already kitted out and have a lot of vigor, something I entirely ignored in the first half but is a liberty that I get now. There are some times where the hyper armor is not enough, as I had almost gotten completely wrecked by this Crucible Knight in this Crucible Duo fight. But it's simply a difference in skill, as moments later, I locked in and went ham on the guy. Then, going through the Lanedale Catacombs, which I actually just skipped here so I can head straight to the other Mog. I tried doing the same strategy, but he didn't have enough health to withstand me. After a really long stretch of fights, we're now only 10 bosses away. I took a moment to marvel at that overwhelming number of bosses, and the hours of my life that I will never get back. We'll begin the endgame with the Godskin Duo cheese, that I messed up so bad I almost lost it. It's really good to know that the rest of the game will continue to be this easy. Oh, right. It must be some sort of sick joke that the hardest fight in the Dragon Incantations playthrough is the one against the Lord of all Dragons. Or maybe I should have expected that from the start. But even if I did, no amounts of foresight would prepare me for the absolute beating that I'd take from Placidusax. Because this guy poses 2 major challenges. Number 1, Placidusax has a lot of health. This is not so much a problem for normal playthroughs, but remember that my total damage output is directly linked to my FP flasks. So no matter what spell I use, it's ultimately limited by my flasks. This immediately eliminated Rot Breath, since Placidusax is so resistant to Rot that I run out of flasks before he goes down. That's assuming you can even hit this guy with a full breath attack. Basically, I'm only left to using the Dragon Claw, which leads us straight to problem number 2. This guy deals so much fucking damage, it's not even funny. I'm over here with full armor, resistance talismans, and consumables, and I will still take over half of my health if I miss the start of a combo. With the previously mentioned FP flask requirement, I also had to play with a lower amount of HP flasks, while also playing a balancing act of which talismans to use and what armor to slap on. This guy deals 3 different damage types. It's kind of crazy. All of these restrictions only meant one thing for this fight. I had to get good. I'm gonna focus, okay? I wanna beat this. What are you doing, little bro? Whoa! That actually did that much damage? Surely not stuns him. What the fuck? Nah, he nasty for that one. What the fuck? I dodged it! No, 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 no. I'm nasty for that one. No, no, no. You got me. I'm fucking nasty for that one. I didn't just realize I'm just slapping a dragon's ass. Okay. Oh my god, I'm lived. No, stop doing that. Do the thing. Stop! I'm gonna get all embarrassed and shit. Oh my god, I did get embarrassed. Come on. Come on. Give me opportunity. I can be the one for you. Maybe all the ass slapping will be for something. If we can make a relationship out of it. Come on, little bro. What the fuck? Okay, we're good. Do a fucking warming stone or something? Surely. Oh my god, we do. I love you, Spartan. You taught me this. Oh my god, that's so fucking predatory and evil. No! Ooh. Oh my god! Are we... Oh my god! We did it! Oh my god! Holy fucking smokes, we locked in. Back in the fray, you might think that Malekith's fast attacks would straight up end this run, but in reality, I simply have too much poise to care. Face tanking the God of Death might not be the first thing that comes into mind, but who's to complain when you get the build to back up your argument? I fucking hate Gideon. This is arguably the most horribly designed boss in the whole game. So naturally, I pulled out every stop that I possibly could for damage. Oh, you're so fucking dead, Gideon! You're so fucking dead! This is the revenge for all of the fucking pain you've caused me, you little bitch! Take this, Les! Oh, that's so satisfying. Oh, that is so satisfying. 6,000 points of pure unadulterated fire damage. Holy sh... I'd say Horalu is quite similar to Placido's Axe, with his fast attacks and big health bar. But there's just one major caveat. He deals full physical damage, something which I have 60% resistance against. Cry about it. The Radagon fight is quite hilarious looking back on it, because on top of the Dragon Claw dealing a ton of damage, it passively dodges a lot of Radagon's attacks. And despite having 2 health bars to deal with, I had just a little over enough to take down both. Rykard turned out to be a pushover, as all I had to deal with was managing how many potions to bring into the fight. None of his attacks hit when you're right in his bum, except for the heat-seeking skulls, which forces me to back off, like when I take a break from kidnapping when the police catch on. Now, here's the kicker. I had no idea that this was even possible for this run, until it was revealed to me in a YouTube video by an absolute Chad. That apparently, Dragon Eyes and Dragon Maw work excessively well against Malenia. You should really check out their video. They do some impressive tricks with the Dragon Breath attacks that I totally butchered. In my attempt, I just kind of queued up Dragon Eyes whenever I can, just in case she starts waterfowl. I didn't get to do it here, but getting Frosted stuns her out of her animation. And while she's under the debuff already, I hit her with as many Dragon Maws as possible. This spell is goated, by the way. 20 damage and poise damage. The biggest hurdles are now finally out of the way. The last 2 bosses being to return to the consecrated chicken to hit it with my newfound knowledge of how good Dragon Maw is. Don't forget to give it a good haircut check. And finally, it's time for the one and only Soldier of Godric. I really made sure to save this guy for last because, yeah, I just wanted to bully someone.